I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Burns.
And this is the Baseball History Time Machine.
And if you love listening to this half as much as I love recording it, then you really do love it.
These are a lot of fun to make.
And what are we going to talk about today, Indy?
We are going to sort of talk about Ty Cobb.
The Georgia Peach. What do you mean, sort of?
We're going to talk about all those players who had higher career batting averages than Ty Cobb.
But there's none. It's going to be a very short episode.
You are correct, but you're also incorrect. Okay, for players with 3,000 or more career at-bats, there are none that have a higher career batting average than Ty Cobb's 366, which was 367 when I was a kid in the 70s, but has since been revised to 366. However, there are players who at some point in their careers had a higher batting average than Cobb's 366.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. This should be interesting, though.
But first, I want to address a comment about last week. When I talked about pitchers that had more than 25% of their starts be shutouts, I did not mention George Washington Bradley.
Wait a minute. I remember him from the Cubs-Cardinal rivalry episode.
Yeah, he was there, dominating Chicago in 1875. And also, in 1876, the first season of the National League, he started 64 games and threw 16 shutouts. That is still the single-season record, though it's tied with Grover Alexander, for a 25 shutout percentage.
That's pretty impressive. Why did you not mention George Washington Bradley last time, then?
Well, first of all, I did say last time that the list was post-1900. And second of all, I said more than a quarter of their starts. But then I broke both of those criteria by, if you'll remember, mentioning Ben Sanders and his 1888 season, and also including several guys who had exactly 25% of their starts be shutouts, like Koufax in 1964 or Rulebach in 1906. So I have no excuse for not mentioning the great George Washington Bradley.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned him here, at least to set the record straight.
And it is a pretty impressive record. 16 shutouts in a season.
I don't think we'll ever see that again anytime soon.
Probably not. But back to Cobb's record career batting average. There are a few gentlemen out there who had, at the end of a season, a higher lifetime batting average.
So not just like going 2 for 4 in your first game. That doesn't count?
That doesn't count. End of a season only. And it has to be a decent number of at-bats, right?
So where did you start?
Well, I started with rookies because by definition, if you hit higher than 366 your rookie season, you have a higher lifetime batting average than Cobb.
I mean, are there many rookies who's ever hit higher than 366?
If you count 400 or more plate appearances, then there are 2 or possibly 3, as we'll soon see. Now, one of them, I've never understood why he's not more remembered since he was a Cardinal, and it wasn't like ages ago. It was after the live ball era began.
Okay, so what year are we talking?
We are talking 1930, which was the big hitters year, but still, that year, Cardinals rookie outfielder George Watkins hit 373.
373 as a rookie is pretty insane. And no, I've never heard of him, actually.
He's a great trivia question because unless you count Ross Barnes, who played the first season of the National League's existence in 1876 as a rookie, though he played in every year of the National Association's existence before that, Watkins' mark is actually the National League rookie batting average record to this day.
That's a great trivia question, all right. Who is the American League one? Didn't Schuler's Joe Jackson hit over 400?
Jackson hit 408 in 1911, his first full season. But depending how you look at it, he was or wasn't a rookie.
How so?
Well, in 1910, he had 86 plate appearances and hit 387. So was that his rookie year?
I mean, 387 is higher than Cobb's 366 anyway.
Yeah, but Jackson appeared in 5 games in both 1908 and 1909 and hit 130 and 176. So even with the 387 in 1910, his career average at the end of that season was only 301, and so he doesn't make this list not as a rookie in that case. Either his 387 or 408 is the rookie mark for the American League, sure. But calling the former his rookie year means he doesn't make this list until the latter happens. I know I'm getting really confusing and complicated, and I'm going to get to Jackson later, okay?
Okay.
But the American League rookie batting average record outside Shoeless Joe Jackson is trickier. Taffy Wright in 1938 hit 350, or 3498, and appeared in 100 games, but only had 263 at-bats. He appeared in the outfield in 60 games, and he pinch hit the rest of the time. If you're talking qualified for the batting title as a rookie who hadn't played at all in the American major leagues before, then Ichiro Suzuki's 350, or 3497, a thousandth of a point behind Taffy Wright, in 2001 is then the AL rookie record.
Oh wow, actually something from this century.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'd had been a star in Japan for a while first.
Yeah.
Tell me more about Taffy Wright.
That guy could hit. He broke in with 350, 309, 337, 322, and 333 averages. And he had a 328 lifetime average after those 5 seasons, and he had a little bit of pop. But then he was away for 3 seasons during World War II, and he was not the same hitter when he returned. Oh, well, he had one pretty solid year. But he was hitting just 235 in 1949 when the A's released him. His career average over 9 seasons was 311.
It's pretty good. It's a shame he's forgotten.
The war derailed a bunch of very promising careers. Cecil Travis is the one that really springs to mind, and I wonder if he pronounced it Cecil or Cecil, like Cecil B. DeMille.
I have no idea.
Okay, if anyone out there knows how Cecil or Cecil Travis pronounced his first name, you can write in on our Facebook page and let us know.
Travis was a shortstop, right?
Yeah, he was a great shortstop. He played in 9 seasons before going to the war, and he topped 315 in 8 of them, and had a 327 career mark at that time. In fact, in 1941, his last season before the war, he was second in the AL with a 359 average. That was 2 points better than Joe DiMaggio, who had the 56-game hitting streak that season. Okay, of course, that was still nearly 50 points behind Ted Williams' 406.
But still, that's a pretty great year.
Travis led the major leagues in hits that year with 218, but when he came back from the war late in 1945, he hit just 241. Then 252 in 1946, his last full season. Then 216 in 74 games in 1947. He played his whole career with Washington.
What might have been.
For sure, if he had another 3 or 4 years at the level he was playing at before the war, he'd likely be a Hall of Famer. At least in terms of hitting for average, he was as good as, say, Luke Appling. Can I get back to the rookies?
Sure.
So we have George Watkins at 373, but there's one other rookie with over 400 plate appearances who had a batting average higher than 366, and it's also someone most people won't guess, Benny Kauf,
Benny Kauf?
who, despite how his name might sound, was not Jewish.
We got to do a Jewish stars episode at some
We
point.
should definitely do that, but Benny Kauf will not be in it. Benny Kauf appeared in 5 games with the Yankees in 1912, but his rookie season was in 1914 in the Federal League with the Indianapolis Hoosiers, for whom he hit 370, which led all 3 major leagues, and with those 5 previous Yankee games had a career 368 average at the end of the season. He also led all 3 leagues that year with 75 stolen bases, 211 hits, and a 981 OPS.
Just a side note, Indianapolis Hoosiers is a great name for a club.
Yeah. Oh, the Federal League teams, they had great names.
Yeah, great name. But how did Ty Cobb do that year in the AL?
Cobb hit 368, so 2 points worse than Kauf, which was an off year for him at this point in his career. And it was actually the lowest he hit between 1908 and 1920.
So, based on that, Kauf must have been a sensation.
Very much so. And I am going to tell you, and everyone out there, the tale of Benny Kauf right now.
I was hoping you'd say that.
He was totally the Ty Cobb of the Federal League, leading the league in hitting again in 1915 at 342, in steals, on base percentage, slugging, so OPS plus of course. He was a real 5-tool player, and certainly one of the most hyped players of his era, if not the most hyped player, right up there with Shoeless Joe Jackson when he got going. Kauf was a strutting, flashy dressing, trash-talking star who would have been at home in the 1990s, I think. Think Kenny Lofton's glove and speed, Edgar Martinez bat, and Deion Sanders' attitude, or Larry Bird's attitude.
Oh, wow, okay. That would have been a fun player to watch.
And he was. As for attitude, when the Federal League folded, he went to the Giants and played for 5 years, but when he got there, he announced, "I'll make them all forget that a guy named Ty Cobb ever pulled on a baseball shoe."
And did he?
Do you remember Ty Cobb?
Yes.
Do you remember Benny Kauf?
No.
There's your answer.
Okay.
But seriously, the problem with Benny Kauf in the National League, which was a tougher league than the Federal League, it wasn't that he wasn't great. It was that he was only very, very good.
Okay.
Of those 5 years, he played 3 full seasons. And he finished in the league top 10 in OPS all 3 times. He was 4th in batting and 5th in on-base percentage in 1917, 9th and 7th in slugging in 1916 and 1919, twice in the top 5 in runs scored, all 3 times in the top 10 in both homers and RBIs. He was 2nd and 3rd in steals in 1916 and 1917.
I mean, that means that he's not maybe a great superstar, but he's a guy you would want in the lineup.
But, if you had a guy like now that did all those things, he would be a great superstar. The thing is, after all the hype and after all the talk, he wasn't great enough, not for the New York fans. Sporting Life magazine wrote about him after his fantastic rookie season. Kauf is the premier slugger, premier fielder, premier base stealer, and best all-around player in the league. He is being called a second Ty Cobb, yet there are many followers of the federal clubs who say that within next season, Kauf will play rings around the Georgia Peach.
Those are some pretty big words, them fighting words.
Fighting words. In Kauf's bio in Dead Ball Stars of the National League, which is another amazing book everybody should get, the writer Damon Runyon is quoted, "Having seen him in civilian array, we are undecided whether Benny Kauf is a better show on or off the field. In his working apparel, he is a companion piece to Tyrus Raymond Cobb and Tris Speaker, while in his street makeup, he's a sort of Diamond Jim Brady reduced to a baseball salary size."
Oh, wow. So he was flashy.
He was as flashy as could be. We're talking diamond rings and diamond tie pins, brightly colored silk shirts, patent leather shoes, fur-collared top coats, gold watches, and thousands of dollars of ready cash in his pockets. He was also apparently a lot of fun to hang out with.
The king of style. So what happened?
I think he was probably a little tacky, but I shouldn't judge fashions from 110 years ago. I'll get to what happened in a second.
This is your before and after story. Instead of imagining a rewarding career in medical imaging, Southeastern College can actually take you there. Prepare for a career in ultrasound, radiology, and X-ray technology. With hands-on specialized training, simulations, and real-life experience with the latest imaging technology, you'll be ready to play a vital role on any healthcare team. Transform your life by helping others. Southeastern College. Your future is bright. Visit scc.edu to get started.
He wanted to play in New York, and New York wanted him already in 1915. And after the 1914 season, the Indianapolis Federal League franchise moved to Newark, but Kauf went to the Brooklyn Tip-Tops as part of a payment of the former Indianapolis owner's debts.
Okay, another great name, but the Brooklyn Tip-Tops?
One thing at a time. Kauf thought that he should be a free agent because of this, and he signed a contract with the Giants. But when he tried to take the field against the Boston Braves in late April, they refused to play, claiming he was an illegal player since he played with an outlaw league. John Tenner, the National League president, agreed, and Kauf's contract was voided. It worked out a year later, though, after the Federal League folded, and then the New York press had headlines like, "All pitchers will be easy, Kauf admits." Yep, that's pretty big hype. The thing is, despite all those things he did in the National League that I just mentioned, at the time, batting average was the main stat people looked at. And though he did top 300 in 1917 and 18, he only hit 364 in 1916. And the public and the press were not very forgiving after all the hype.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fall-off, and the proof is not in the pudding.
In 1918, he was having a great season, but he was drafted into the Great War. Now, here is something, a quote from that book I mentioned, right? In retrospect, Kauf's wartime break from baseball was an important demarcation in his brief career. In his first 2 1/2 seasons in the National League, Kauf found himself at the center of a swirling vortex of media hype and criticism, mostly of his own creation. Yet when he returned to the Polo Grounds in 1919, the prevailing atmosphere was far more somber and scandalous.
The plot thickens.
That it does. Now, 1919 is the year of the Black Sox, but at least 2 of Kauf's teammates, Hal Chase and Heine Zimmerman, were rumored to have been fixing games. Apparently, they tried to bribe Kauf to join them, and he reported this to manager John McGraw.
I mean, that's pretty honest of him.
It is, but I guess it's the honest tip of the dishonest iceberg. Now, the Black Sox scandal doesn't blow up until near the end of the 1920 season. But after it does, Billy Mayharg, one of the fixers, will say that Kauf was in on it. And Arnold Rothstein himself, Mr. Big, allegedly tells American League President Van Johnson that Kauf asked him for $50,000 to bribe the Sox with before the series.
Allegedly.
Yeah, but this was later. Something else came first.
Okay.
See, in 1919, Kauf and his half-brother and fellow Giant Jesse Barnes, who was actually the Giants' ace in 1919, going 25-9, they started a Manhattan auto parts business. And in February 1920, Kauf was indicted on auto theft charges.
Really?
The charges were that Kauf and two associates stole a car from a West End Avenue parking lot, repainted it, gave it new tires and a new license plate, and then sold it. Kauf says this is not true, and he was unaware the car was stolen when he sold it. He still played ball during the investigation, but it got pretty ugly in New York, so McGraw sent him down to Toronto to keep him fresh, and then at the end of the season got him back. Well, before 1921, and with all of the hoopla about the Black Sox scandal and the integrity of baseball and the worry that baseball wasn't even going to be able to continue as it had been because of the integrity of the game, Judge Landis, baseball commissioner, says Kauf is ineligible to play until the criminal matter is resolved. The trial is 5 days in May, and the witnesses against Kauf are those two associates, ex-cons, who say they helped Kauf pick the car and refit it. Kauf says he was at dinner with his wife. He couldn't have done it. There are a few solid character witnesses for him, and the jury then takes less than an hour to say not guilty.
That's pretty quick.
But it doesn't help Benny Kauf. Landis doesn't lift the ban on him playing, saying that the trial, quote, disclosed a state of affairs that more than seriously compromises your character and reputation. The reasonable and necessary result of this is that your mere presence in the lineup would inevitably burden patrons of the game with grave apprehension as to its integrity. That quote is from that same bio, by the way. Landis would later say, the trial was a complete miscarriage of justice.
Okay, but wait, with the Black Sox scandal threatening the existence of Major League Baseball itself, you sort of kind of understand him getting rid of anybody that was only a suspect, right?
And sort of, I guess. The Sporting News links Kauf with the 8 Black Sox in that a court said they were innocent, but public opinion does not agree. Kauf appeals to the New York State Supreme Court to get an injunction against his permanent ban from baseball. And though the state justice agrees that an apparent injustice has been done to Kauf, the court says it has no grounds on which to act. And that is that for the baseball career of the man who would be king, Benny Kauf. He played his last game at the age of 30.
Well, that's a pretty sad story, but there have been plenty of convicted criminals who's played in the Major League.
Including Fred Toney, who, as I said last time, was arrested for violating the Mann Act.
You gotta tell me that story this time.
Yeah, okay, sure. Okay, I'll back up a little bit. In the off-season after 1917, Toney was arrested by U.S. Marshals for attempting to dodge the draft. He claimed his wife, his kid, and his parents as dependents when he signed the draft status statement, though he hadn't lived with his wife for 3 years. The trial ended with a hung jury. But at the trial, it came out he was traveling with a young woman. When I say young, I mean she was a minor. So in April 1918, he was arrested for violating the Mann Act for transporting a minor across state lines for immoral purposes, in this case, sexual. He played in 1918, and the fans were merciless. And then he pled guilty and did time and came back in 1919 to go 13-6 with a 1.84 ERA, pitching for who? The New York Giants.
So he was teammates with Kauf, and Kauf got banned, and Toney didn't?
Yep.
And Kauf was not guilty, and Toney pled guilty. And Kauf wasn't accused of fixing games or anything like that?
No, he was not accused of gambling or anything like that. He was accused of the car thing and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, no one said that all was fair in baseball behind the scenes. But hey, I have more rookies with higher averages than Cobb to get to, and more other players even. I fear this episode is turning into a two-parter.
I'm fine with that.
We've covered the only rookies with 400 at-bats who top 366. But if you go down to 300 at-bats, you get 4 more.
Okay.
You get 3 Negro Leaguers. There's Roy Parnell, who hit a whopping .422 with the Birmingham Black Barons, which is the most amazing rookie mark ever.
That's very true.
Parnell had some other very good years, but nothing like that rookie season, 1927 was. And the other 2 Negro Leaguers are from 1926 and 1925, funny enough, so 3 years in a row. Walter Kennedy hit .389 in 1925. Now, these were not the first games of his career. He played 16 games in 1922, but he hit .386 in those, so he was still, way up at the end of 1925. Yeah. But he, too, never had a season with so much offense again.
Who was the third one?
In 1926, Helly Harding hit .378 in his first season with Indianapolis in the Negro National League. He only ever topped 300 once after that.
Do you have any good stories about these guys?
I don't, actually. I don't know the Negro Leagues as well as the, I guess, white major leagues. I am reading some stuff, but I can't talk about them nearly as well. I mean, I can talk about Benny Kauf all day. I can't talk about Hallie Harding all day.
So that's it for the rookies?
No, there is one other rookie to mention, the one who holds the rookie average record for the American Association.
I forgot about them.
And they very much were a major league in the 1880s, and well, we covered some exciting stuff about them in episodes 4 and 5. Now, this player is a guy who remained a star for his entire career. Okay. The Gladiator, the Louisville Slugger himself, Pete Browning, who hit .378 for the Louisville Eclipse in 1882.
I love that their team name is singular.
Me too. I'm guessing, though I don't know for sure, that their name was inspired by the total solar eclipse over Louisville in 1869, since local teams called the eclipse were active in Louisville in the 1870s.
You were in Dallas last year for the total eclipse.
I was, and the same day I saw the Astros beat the Rangers. And, fun fact, the Astros were losing 5-0 in the first inning before getting a single Ranger out. There's no outs and down 5-0. And then they won the game 10-5, which was a crazy fun game. Pretty good ballpark food, too.
You have a hot dog first?
I always have a hot dog first. You gotta, right?
Yeah, of course.
Browning was a big star. He topped 400 once. He won 3 batting titles. He hit .341 lifetime, which is 16th on the list.
Yeah, that's a star, right?
Only twice in 11 full seasons did he not finish in the top 3 in the league in batting average. He played in 3 leagues, and he won batting titles in 2 of them, including the sole season of the Players' League in 1890.
That guy could hit.
He also had a lot of quirks. He was unusual. He was really picky about his bats, and was one of the first, if not the first, major leaguers to have them custom made. J.F. Hillerick had a woodworking shop in Louisville from 1855, and during the 1880s, his teenage son Bud started working there. J.F. Hillerick & Son is today Hillerick & Bradsby, and the tale is that the son, who was a baseball fan, skipped work one day to go catch a Louisville Eclipse game, and that day Pete Browning happened to break his bat. So Bud apparently had him down to the woodshop and made a bat for him there, which helped end a batting slump Browning was in. Browning loved his new bat, and he told other players, and they started having them made too. This may or may not be true, or partly true, because other players in the 1880s laid claim to being the first as well. But Pete Browning, the team star, was known as the Louisville Slugger.
No way, so the bat's got the name from him? That's really cool.
At first, the bats were called the Falls City Slugger, but in 1894, the year Browning retired, they trademarked the name Louisville Slugger. And Browning was called that in newspapers no later than 1891 for sure. So yeah.
That's pretty good trivia.
Interestingly enough, Papa Hillerick didn't think there was much future in making bats. Stair railings was more his thing. But his son sure believed in it, and eventually Dad gave in.
So that's the AA rookie champ, the Louisville Slugger.
Thing is, before joining the AA in 1882, the Louisville Eclipse was one of the top semi-pro teams in the States, so Browning was ready to cut loose when they went major. There is more that's interesting about Browning. Like, he had some physical and mental issues.
Such as?
Well, he suffered his whole life from mastoiditis.
And what is mastoiditis?
It is, and I can thank Wikipedia for the details, an inflammation from an infection to the lining around the air-filled cavities in the skull behind the ear. They didn't have antibiotics then, and kids used to die from it quite often. For Browning, it gave him terrible headaches, and more importantly, robbed him of his hearing. Because of the frustration and embarrassment caused by that, he wouldn't go to school, so he was only semi-literate. I read somewhere, it might have been in the book The Beer and Whiskey League, but I don't really remember, that once he left a note for a teammate to tell him which hotel room they were in, and he wrote, the room was 88, but he didn't write the numbers, and he didn't write 88 up. He wrote AITYATE, 88.
Still gets the point across, right?
Which is true, sure. The pain and frustration no doubt contributed to his raging alcoholism, and he would end up in an asylum and die an early death because of all this.
There's a lot of sad stories like this in baseball history.
There are. He was, however, pain-free for a time, at least in 1884 after some surgery, and that had to be nice. And hey, here's another fun piece of trivia. In 1886, Guy Hecker, who also played with Louisville, won the batting title over Browning 341 to 340. Hecker thus became the only pitcher to win a batting title as a pitcher, appearing in 49 games on the mound, 48 starts and 45 complete games, and playing 34 games in the field on his days off.
There's a lot of good trivia today.
That there is. Hecker actually also won the AA pitching Triple Crown 2 years earlier in 1884 with 52 wins, a 1.80 ERA, and 385 strikeouts.
385, that's more than Nolan Ryan's record.
That's more than Nolan Ryan's post-1893 record, but fewer than Matty Kilroy's pre-1893 record of 513.
513 strikeouts in a season.
In 583 innings pitched as a rookie in 1886 with Baltimore. He was actually a better pitcher in 1887, though his strikeouts dropped to 217.
I mean, 513 in a season. Did that lead the league by 200 strikeouts or something?
Actually, no. Toad Ramsey had 499 in 1886, so Kilroy only won the strikeout title by 14. And Ramsey was a better overall pitcher that year, too.
513 strikeouts in a season has to be one of the most unbreakable records of any list.
Okay, but let's get back to Hecker and Browning. Hecker first. I wanted to point out something that really shows how a pitcher's career usually was with the overuse of the 1880s. Hecker's pitching Triple Crown season was a 171 ERA plus in 670.2 innings, which is the third most all time.
More crazy numbers.
His innings pitched and his ERA plus both decreased each and every year the rest of his career.
Okay.
His innings went from 670 to 480, 420, 285, 223, 151, and 119. And his ERA plus went from that 171, 149, 126, 105, 89, 68, 65.
Ouch. So he went from great to very good to kind of average to bad.
Pretty much. It was all just overuse, but pitching careers were expected to be short then. Okay, and now back to Browning. This is a quote from his SABR bio page. The 6-foot, 180-pound Browning was eccentric as well. He refused to slide, played defense standing on one leg to prevent anyone running into him, stared into the sun to improve his lamps, his eyes, treasured his active bats because of the hits they still contained, was constantly on the prowl for the next new magical stick with hits in it, reportedly favored bats that were 37 inches in length and 48 ounces in weight, maintained a warehouse of retired bats in his home, all of them named, many after biblical figures, kept his batting statistics on his shirt cuffs, and when traveling over the circuit, frequently alighted from trains and introduced himself as the champion batter of the American Association.
The general public must have loved this guy.
They did, and they even put up with his occasional public drunkenness at games. Now, Browning did have one bad year. In 1889, he hit either 259 or 256, depending which source you look at. But this was largely down to morale.
How so?
The 1889 Louisville Eclipse were one of the worst teams in history. The reasons behind that are a story for another day. But they finished 27 and 111, 27 wins and 111 losses for a 196 winning percentage.
Is that better or worse than the Rockies are right now?
It's actually better. But the Eclipse posted a record 26 straight losses that year and finished 66 and a half games out of first. Browning was suspended for the final 2 months of the season for drunkenness. And, well, as Browning himself once supposedly said, "I can't hit the ball until I hit the bottle."
What a quote, wow.
And at least the end of the 1882 season, Pete Browning had a higher lifetime average than Ty Cobb finished his career with.
But there are players who had a career average above 366 at the end of the season who weren't rookies, right?
Yeah, there are actually a few of them.
And who are they?
For that, I fear you will have to wait until next week.
Oh man, but Shoeless Joe at least one of them, right?
Yeah, Shoeless Joe is. But there are in fact quite a few players to talk about as it turns out, and I imagine I will have quite a few sidetracks just like today.
I mean, those are my favorite parts.
Yeah, me too. Okay, everyone, join us next week, and I'll tell you about a bunch of great hitters, that is for sure. If you'd like to get these episodes ad-free and early, depending when I finish editing them, you can join our team on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and look up Indy Nidell's Baseball History Time Machine. See, Burns and I have regular work that, unlike most people, consumes a varying amount of time. So that's really our choice. So the more financial support we get to do this means we can spend more time on this instead of that. And we can make more episodes and longer episodes and come up with some other cool stuff. The $4 a month tier is what gets you the ad-free content. And it really does add up pretty quick if you get a bunch of small donors together.
And you have any suggestions for any perks we could offer on Patreon or any episode ideas, you can let us know at the podcast Facebook page.
Yeah, or baseballhistorytimemachine@gmail.com. Okay, sports fans, that's it for today from me, Indy Nidels.
And me, Burns.
And the Baseball History Time Machine.